Hello everyone, welcome to week 4. This is going to be a synchronous class, so you just have to listen to this recording this week, so there's no in-person class, okay? Just a reminder. You have an activity that is due this week as well. It is worth 4% of your overall grade. Please make sure that you meet the deadline for this, as there's no extensions and no late submission is accepted, okay? Or will be accepted. A little bit of a to-do list on this blue sticky note here. So make sure you listen to this recording, do your readings, listen to the TED Talk, and complete the assignment by the due date. Okay, remember this picture? This is a picture from week 1, a reflection on who you are as an individual, who you are as maybe a leader already, and who you could be as a future leader. So this week, that's what it's all about, reflection of your self-awareness, okay? So be authentic to yourself. Reflect on what values do you have, what beliefs do you have, what actions do you make, and why do you make those? What is important to you as an individual? Okay, what is important to you as the future leader? Okay? This future leader could be as if you never want to be in a leadership position, you could be always going to be that leader to your patient. So advocate for your patient would be showing your leadership skills. Okay. So if you are becoming a leader, if that is something that you want to take and that road you want to take, what kind of leader do you want to be? Okay, discover yourself, understand yourself, understand how others see you as well. We'll get into that a little bit more. But first, let's pause and reflect. So hi, my name is, and I am. So how do you introduce yourself to others? Do you introduce yourself a little bit different to your friends or friends of friends that you meet that are new in your circle of friends? Do you introduce yourself a little bit differently to individuals at work or maybe in clinical or maybe to your patients? So reflect on that. Do you remember my introduction when I did it in the first class to everybody? I told you a little bit about me. I told you a little bit about my education, my background, my experience, a little bit something about my personal life, my dogs, where I live, and something interesting that I like to do, such as travel. Okay? So reflect about how you introduce yourself to others in different situations. So why is self-awareness important? Why do we need to do this? Well, it really enables you to understand who you are as an individual and the awareness of those strengths you might have, the limitations you might have, and it really better equips you with the challenges you face, the problems you have to solve, the decisions you have to make, recognizing the stressors you might have in your life. Okay, actually there is a study that indicates that self-awareness prevents burnout as well, and really focusing on that therapeutic relationship with patients. So if you know who you are, you know how to kind of talk to your patients and be aware of yourself in those situations. You build those communication skills as well as those therapeutic relationships. Okay, so here's a little quote that I'll read through. So self-awareness is an ongoing intrapersonal, relational, extrapersonal, contextual process of becoming aware of one's physical, psychological traits, emotional state, and feelings, and meaningful life patterns, actions, beliefs, and preconceived ideas. And we'll get into that a little bit further. And here we go on this slide. Okay, so the first one is intrapersonal. Okay, so focusing on yourself, your personal self, examining your thoughts influencing by your history, culture, social understanding of self and family values. So for example, for me, when I self-reflect under intrapersonal, I reflect that I am an immigrant to Canada. I was an ESL student, and some of the cultural aspects that came from my other country to be here. I told you guys that I'm from Poland, so what cultural, social backgrounds that I have that influence my, beliefs in the self and the family values. Okay? Rational is that allows oneself to analyze oneself in relation to other people and examines own thoughts and feelings with others. So this is, that being comfortable in the different situations. So remember that stop and reflect on how you introduce yourself. And I told you that maybe you introduce yourself a little bit differently in different groups or different situations. So how comfortable are you with those new people? Okay, how comfortable are you meeting new people with your friends? How comfortable are you introducing yourselves to those patients, for example, to introduction to others at work? Okay, so how are you comfortable with certain people? That's what that one means. Next is extra personal. So this is that mental state that you have, self-focused on analysis of internal and external environment. So what are the way you are in certain environments working with? Okay, so what mental state are you with at that time? So my example would be working maternal child. I was influenced, as I told you, by my aunt that was a midwife in Poland, and kind of that is what drew me in to that environment. And this is why my specialty is maternal child when it comes to nursing, one of the specialties. All right. And the last one is multidimensional. So this is recognizing the influence of social, environmental, and cultural, political factors that affect self-awareness. So really that environment, social, cultural, and political factors as well. So how do you see yourself? And you'll get into this a little bit further as you do your assignment. Multiple contexts to the need to know self before you know others by examining your different cultural contexts. So this is really meaning that you need to know who you are in the culture, in the multi-complex dimensions before you can take care of others. Okay, so looking at the historical context, social-political context, material economic context, physical context, and linguistics context as well. So historical. So once again, look at, what is your family history? Where do you come from? Where did you grow up? What influenced you the way you are today? What values, beliefs do you have? Social political would be the economic status, the education background that you have, the gender, sexual identification, the race, who you are as a social political context. Next one is a material economic context. So that economic status influence access to what you need. Do you have what you need? Do you have access to what you need? So that's under that context. Physical is what are the key environmental influences that you and your family well-being and health. All right. Linguistics. So do you speak another language? How does that influence who you are? Okay. How do you place yourself in relation to your friends, relation to your colleagues, relation to your patients? All right. So intrapersonal and interpersonal self-awareness. So really focusing on that intrapersonal, which is that personal self-awareness, and interpersonal would be professional self-awareness. So the personal self-awareness, so questions that you might want to ask and reflect are, what are my own historical, social, political, physical, linguistic contexts that we just went over? How do these influence my identity, my values, my beliefs, my attitudes, my behaviors? And how are my context influences the way in relationship to others? all right? And that professional, self-awareness, interpersonal. So how do I relate to others from different cultures? What stereotypes do I attract or attach to others? What am I assuming about others, and why do I do that, right? What assumptions do you have? What context may influence how others relate to me as well? Okay. Next is diversity in the cultural context. So really this is identification what that culture is, which is fluid, dynamic. It evolves history, political, social conditions. Culturally diverse context embraces the diversity of others, assumes many forms in society, such as age, gender, sexuality, orientation, social, political status, and it's not limited to race or ethnicity. Remember that, okay? And pre-understanding of self-awareness of biases allows to seek the person beyond the culture. So cultural competency, what does that exactly mean? Cultural competency, okay? So really it is grounded in critical reflection and action, which in healthcare professional draws upon to provide cultural safety, congruent and effective care, partnering with individuals, families, and communities. So working with everyone, right? And experiences of those living individuals, factors of those social political dimensions of care. And developing cultural competencies is not only a way of doing, but also a way of being. Remember that from theory? All right, let's look at this quickly here. So cultural competency development, but this is just an overview from your readings. So do review your readings, do read through the week 4 assignment readings in your course syllabus, okay? So really this is looking at the nurses or students, so who you are, personal trajectory to that 3 levels. So level 1, level 2, and level 3. So level 1 being open to the different realizations of practice and cultural diverse contexts. Okay, so that practice that you do with those culturally diverse contexts. Number 2, so level 2, challenging one's practice in cultural diverse contexts. So challenging those practices. And number 3 would be combining it all, integrating a way of different reality practices of that cultural diverse. All right. So let's look at a little bit further here. So level 1, being open to different realities. Okay. So this is how do you do that? So building relationship with others, perceive the gaps between the nurse and the patient, show openness, be aware of kind of communication and importance of that communication with others, working outside the usual practice. So be aware of those challenges that you might have or that is situational in the context. And be aware of those theory practices as well, and more of the experiences that colleagues bring in. Okay, that brings you to that level 2. So building this relationship, so look at the commonalities between nurses and patients. Focus on the patient that when you are with patient, and have various different communication styles. Okay, outside, so patient environments account for, wanting to learn where they come from, what makes them who they are today, right? So the environment that they're in at the time of the time that you're taking care of them, and take the risk and challenges, and take your own practice models as well. And level 3 would be incorporating the difference into the relationship with the patient, establish the partnership with the patient, okay? And really that is that through that communication and that nurse-client relationship and partnership that you create. Consider the patient and the nurse as a core competency of that dynamic system, and act as the right time. So, once you learned who they are, who you are, communication, builds relationship, act at that time what is best possible for that person. Okay, so follow the 2 articles and read through them and focusing on that Johara window model. So that's reading. And there's a video here as well. It is embedded into this PowerPoint, but also it is under the notes in the PowerPoint and also in your readings. This is the 2 types of self-awareness. These are important to note. I'm not going to be playing that video here, but it is something that you need to review and you're going to be tested on as well. So hint, hint. So focus on that TED Talk by Tasha Enrich, and the title is Increase Your Self-Awareness with One Simple Fix. All right. Let's look at that Johari window model. So you have the boxes here, okay? So, and know yourself, unknown to self, know to others, and unknown to others. So open self, right? So open self would be know to both self and others. So, you know yourself well, and individuals see you the way you see yourself. Unknown to self, so that is the blind spot. So unnoticed to self, but others. So you might not know yourself, but others might see you this way. Hidden self would be you do know yourself well, but not others see you a little bit differently. Okay, so that's under here. And unknown self. So this is both. You don't know really about yourself, and people don't know about yourself. So this is a 2x2 map of internal self-awareness. So this is really how well do you know yourself against the external self-awareness. So how well do you understand how others see you? Okay. So at the top you have low external self-awareness, and on here you have high internal self-awareness, which is introspectors. Okay. Over here you have aware, seekers, and pleasures, okay, and the different aspects of it. So for example, pleasures, they can be so focused on appearing as a certain way to others that they could be overlooked what matters to them, and over time they tend to make choices that aren't in the service of others in their own success and fulfillment, for example. So question to ask yourself: what drives you? What is the purpose? What values do you have? What beliefs do you have? What biases or challenges? Who am I based on influence of my race, culture, gender? Okay. What actions consistent with what I value as an individual within the society? How do others see me? So if you ask someone else, how do you see me? Do you see me this way? Do you see me that way? Or, have an example of that and challenge your thinking, but also be open-minded to their feedback. And how do you wish to see yourself? Okay. And how do you wish others to see you as an individual? So analyze personal behaviors in the group. So you can rate yourself by using the scale from 0 to 7, from low to high. And you can rate yourself, and then you can ask somebody else to rate you as well. You have been developing those groups for that project that is due in week 11. So let's do a couple of these, but then I encourage you to do all of these yourself, and also as well ask somebody else, maybe from your group or maybe somebody that is close to you. So listening abilities. How well do you listen? How would you rate yourself from that 0 to 7? 0 being really low and 7 being high, as in really good ability to listen. Trust. Okay, it's another one. Willingness to express feelings. Do you express your feelings well? Do you express them to others? if you are working with a group or with a team, if there's something that, you want to say, do you say it, or you just kind of be quiet in that spot or that moment? Okay. Okay, are you able to be influenced by others? Or maybe you are the influence to others. Tendency to monopolize the group, react to comments of personal behavior, awareness of feeling of others, understanding of the reasons for your own actions. Why do you do what you do? Understanding those. Reactions of conflict. So what do you do when there's a conflict in your group? Okay, how do you react to that conflict? Do you express it in a warm, cozy way, or do you get upset, and then you walk away, and then you talk about it with others? And reaction to conflict of opinion. How do you do that? Do you, once again, express it in within that group, if there's a conflict? Or do you walk away? Are you quiet and don't say anything to anyone? Or maybe you go and talk to a friend about what has happened. Okay, so next is reflexivity. So this is that critical reflection piece. So examine that own self of values, beliefs, attitudes, assumptions. This is where you're going to focus on that intrapersonally, paying attention to others, interpersonally awareness of critically analyzing how you are related to others, and contextually, so aware of surroundings and what influences the situations. And let's talk about the art piece. So art can facilitate enhance the reflexivity. Okay, so here's a couple examples of art-based pedagogy. So that it really embraces that emotion connection and aesthetic experiences. In your theory classes, you've learned the aesthetic piece of nursing as one way of knowing. So how do you express yourself through that art-based? Or maybe how does your patient or your patients express themselves? So knowledge from art also is known as really diving into knowing the diversity of many ways of yourself, of others, and enrich in self-awareness and reflection, and uncovering maybe some undiscovered assumptions. Okay, so art-based approaches is through that. It could be through painting, it could be through music, through the different arts, okay? And producing that aesthetic experience that aim to arouse the emotional aspect of understanding. And when individual's context meaning unique to the person. So what is unique to that individual? So this is a picture of the sphere. So pause and reflect. And what do you see in this picture? So some individuals might see, a giant gold art, and then within it, you've got further smaller ball that reflects buildings that are opposite. So individuals see different things in different ways, right? And that's okay. I see the sphere within the large spheres symbolizes the reflection and the perceptions and perceived notions. So seeing those buildings, as you can see them right here, right? So that's how I see them. But what do you see? And another way is taking on that beyond art is weaving the baskets. So weaving would be symbolizing the fibers of individual and unique as it is in every person worldwide. No two fibers are the same, right? No two individuals are the same. However, it is a blending of two or more of these fibers that enrich the appearance, the texture, the structure, right? So weaving those baskets. So from these fibers, you create these beautiful baskets, right? As we integrate with others, work with others, form relationships, identify who we are as individuals and how we are with others. And diversity of those baskets here is the diversity of the individuals and integration into that community globally as well. All right, so this brings me to the end of today's lecture. Please make sure that you do your readings. Please make sure that you watch the TED Talk. Go to your self-awareness activity folder. Complete the activities. There are the worksheet that you need to submit, but there's also a self-reflection exercise that you need to complete, and that is only for yourself. So it's called self-awareness and critical self-reflection exercise. You do not need to hand this in. You only need to submit that worksheet to turn it in by the deadline. And make sure that you understand the Johari model, the self-awareness aspects, critical reflection exercises, and complete the assignment and submit it on time. And remember, there's no late submissions for this assignment as it is open for extended period of time. So do meet the deadline for each class. Thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you guys next week, week 5 in-person class. Thank you.